The chamber fell silent as Commander Vex Thor slammed his four-fingered fist against the holographic display. The image flickered, showing a cluster of human colonies scattered across the Outer Rim territories like vulnerable prey waiting to be taken. "These colonies are ripe for conquest," Vex Thor announced, his scaled chest swelling with confidence. Around the circular war table, representatives from a dozen Crinathian military fleets nodded in agreement. Their black eyes gleamed with anticipation. The humans have grown soft in their prosperity. They refuse to maintain proper military presence. They trust in diplomacy and peace treaties like children. Trust in bedtime stories. 9. The other commanders murmured their approval. Fleet Admiral Krenax stood, her crimson battle armor catching the blue light from the star maps above. "Our intelligence confirms minimal defensive installations. The colony of New Harrisburg produces 70% of the region's agricultural output. If we strike there, we cripple their food supply and force concessions across 5 sectors. We will show the Galactic Council that the Crinathian Empire does not bow to these newcomers." Vex Thor continued, his voice rising with passion. "Humanity has been part of the galactic community for barely 2 centuries. They are infants playing at politics. We have conquered worlds for 10,000 years. This will be a simple operation. Fast, clean, profitable." The door to the chamber hissed open. Every head turned as a figure shuffled into the room, moving with the slow gait of someone who had seen too many battles and survived too many wounds. The creature was Vrexian, a species closely related to the Crinathians, but something was wrong with this one. His scales were dull and patchy. His eyes held a strange emptiness that made several of the younger officers uncomfortable. "Khura'in," Vex Thor said with barely concealed disgust. "You were not invited to this war council. You are retired. Your glory days ended decades ago." The old Vrexian moved to the center of the room, ignoring the hostile stares. His voice, when he spoke, was rough, like gravel scraping against metal. "I know what you are planning. I have heard the rumors spreading through the military channels. You cannot do this. You must not attack the humans." Laughter erupted around the table. Krenax sneered openly. "The great Khura'in, reduced to a coward. I heard you lost your nerve after your last campaign, but I did not believe it until now." Crane's expression did not change. "I did not lose my nerve. I lost 43 years of my life. I am here to warn you, because no one else will. The humans are not what you think they are." Vex's Thor leaned forward, his interest piqued despite himself. Khura'in had once been a legend, a warrior whose tactical genius had secured victories against 3 separate species. His sudden retirement had spawned countless rumors, but no one knew the real story. "Explain yourself, old one. What happened to you?" The chamber grew quiet. Crane moved to the holographic display and touched a control panel. The image changed, showing a different region of space, a sector that had been contested territory 45 years ago. "I led a fleet of 18 warships against what we believed was a human research station. Our intelligence suggested it was lightly defended. We wanted their technology, their scientific data. It was supposed to be a quick raid." He paused, and for a moment, his hands trembled. "We destroyed their defensive satellites. We disabled their shields. We boarded the station with 300 soldiers. We encountered resistance, yes. But it was strange. They used weapons that stunned rather than killed. They fell back in organized retreats instead of fighting to the death. We thought they were weak. We thought we were winning," Krenax interrupted. "So you defeated them? Where is the warning in this story? She's why. Why? She's why. Why? We did not defeat them," Crane said quietly. "They let us take the station. Then they surrounded us. Their fleet came out of nowhere. Ships we had not detected, using technology we did not understand. They cut off all escape routes. And then they boarded our vessels." Vex Thor frowned. "And they slaughtered your forces?" "No." Crane's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. They captured us. All of us. Every single soldier. Every crew member. Every officer. Not one of us died in that battle. Not one. The silence that followed was thick with confusion. Another commander, a younger officer named Thexlar, spoke up. They took prisoners? So what? You were eventually released in a prisoner exchange. This happens in every war. Juan. Crane turned to face him, and there was something in his eyes that made Thexlar step back involuntarily. There was no prisoner exchange. The humans do not do prisoner exchanges. They do not execute captives. They do not ransom them. They do not release them until they are satisfied that you have been reformed. Reformed? Vexthor repeated the word, as if it tasted foul. What does that mean? Mina. Vexthor. It means they keep you, Crane said. They put you in facilities they call rehabilitation centers. They feed you. They give you medical care better than anything our own people provide. They heal your wounds, cure your diseases, extend your life, and they educate you. They force you to learn their history, their philosophy, their ethics. They assign you therapists and counselors. They make you attend classes and group sessions. They evaluate your progress constantly. The chamber erupted in confused muttering. That humans are too kind to their prisoners? You were fed and cared for? How terrible. You do not understand, Crane said, his voice rising for the first time. They kept me for 43 years. 43 years in comfortable confinement, being taught like a child, being analyzed and evaluated and reformed. They did not release me until they were certain I had internalized their values, until I saw the universe the way they wanted me to see it. Vexthor stood slowly, studying the old Vrexian with new interest. You are saying they brainwashed you? No, Crane replied. Brainwashing is crude, temporary, breakable. What humans do is far more sophisticated. They do not break your mind. They reshape it. They use patience and time and endless, relentless compassion. They wear you down not with cruelty but with kindness. They make you question everything you believed. And the worst part, the truly horrifying part, is that they genuinely believe they are helping you. He pulled up another image on the display, showing a massive orbital facility. Rehabilitation. Center. 7. This is where I spent most of my captivity. It houses over 50,000 prisoners from 18 different species. Some have been there for 60 years. 70. A few for nearly a century. The humans will not release them until their psychological evaluations indicate complete rehabilitation. Thexlar shook his head. This is insane. The Galactic Convention on Prisoners of War prohibits indefinite detention. The humans follow the convention, Crane said. Technically, their definition of rehabilitation is just broad enough to comply with the letter of the law. The Council has challenged them 3 times. Each time, human lawyers presented documentation showing that their prisoners receive excellent care, regular evaluations, and clear paths to release. The fact that almost no one actually completes those paths is conveniently overlooked. Vexthor began to pace, his tactical mind working through the implications. How many prisoners have they accumulated? Ever. Current estimates suggest approximately 400,000 across 12 major facilities, Crane answered. Those are only the military captives. They have separate programs for criminal offenders, which number in the millions. Humans are obsessed with the concept of rehabilitation. They applied the same philosophy they use on their own criminals to prisoners of war. In their minds, anyone who commits violence is simply someone who has not yet been properly educated. Kreenak slammed her hand on the table. This is ridiculous. We are discussing military strategy, not philosophy lectures, so the humans are naive idealists who refuse to kill their enemies. This makes them weak, not dangerous. You think it makes them weak? Crane turned to face her fully. Let me tell you what I witnessed. I saw a Kragnoth warlord, a creature that had personally killed thousands in arena combat, reduced to teaching poetry to new prisoners after 20 years of human care. I saw a Selkiri assassin, trained from birth to feel no empathy, weeping during a group therapy session about the lives she had taken. I saw warriors from a dozen proud species working as counselors and educators, helping the humans rehabilitate new captives. He moved closer to the war table, his voice intense. The humans have turned compassion into a weapon. They have made mercy into something more terrifying than any torture. Because when you are tortured, you can resist. You can hate your captors. You can hold on to your identity and your beliefs. But when your captors heal you, feed you, educate you, and treat you with unfailing kindness, year after year after year, when they never give up on you, no matter how much you resist, when they genuinely believe they are saving you from yourself, how do you fight that? The chamber was silent now, the initial mockery replaced by unease. Vex Thor stared at the old warrior, searching for any sign of deception or madness. He found neither. You were released eventually. How? Karain's shoulders sagged. After 43 years, I passed their evaluations. I had learned their languages, studied their history, understood their philosophy. I could discuss their ethical frameworks and recite their principles of justice. I had participated in countless therapy sessions, conflict resolution workshops, and meditation classes, and somewhere along the way, without even realizing it was happening, I began to believe some of what they taught me. He looked around the room at the assembled commanders. I was released because I was no longer the person who entered that facility. That Karain died in there, slowly, peacefully, surrounded by care and compassion. The person who walked out was someone new. Someone who could not raise a weapon against another sentient being without feeling sick. Someone who had been reformed. Vex Thor felt a chill run through his scales. And you came here to warn us? Because of this experience? I came here because I know you will not listen, Crane said quietly. I know you will see human compassion as weakness. You will see their refusal to kill as an opportunity. You will attack their colonies thinking you face sheep, and you will discover too late that you face something far more dangerous than wolves. You will be captured, every last one of you. And you will spend the rest of your lives in comfortable cages, being slowly, gently, irreversibly changed into something you do not recognize. Kreenax stood abruptly. I have heard enough of this nonsense. You are a broken old fool who let the humans corrupt your mind. We are warriors of the Krynathian Empire. We will not be defeated by kindness and therapy sessions. Other voices rose in agreement. The mood in the chamber shifted back toward aggression and confidence. Vex Thor watched Karain's expression fade to resignation. The old Vrexian had known this would happen. He had delivered his warning knowing it would be rejected. There is one more thing you should know, Karain said, speaking over the noise. The room quieted slightly. The humans have a saying. They teach it to every prisoner in those facilities. They repeat it until it becomes embedded in your mind. He paused, his eyes distant. They say, no sentient being is beyond redemption. We will wait as long as it takes. No, he turned and shuffled toward the door, moving with that same defeated gait. Attack the humans if you must, Commander Vex Thor. Take their colonies. Claim your victory. But know this, escape is impossible. Once they have you, they will never let you go. Not until you are someone else entirely. And you will live long enough to forget who you were before. The door hissed shut behind him, leaving the War Council in uncomfortable silence. Vex Thor stared at the spot where Crane had stood, his mind churning. Around him, the other commanders began to speak again, dismissing the warning, reinforcing their resolve. But Vex Thor remained quiet, a small seed of doubt planted in his mind. He looked at the holographic image of New Harrisburg, the vulnerable human colony, the easy target. For just a moment, he wondered if Crane was right. Then he pushed the thought away. The Cranathian Empire did not bow to fear. They were predators, and predators did not fear prey, no matter how strange their behavior. "We proceed as planned," he announced. "The fleet launches in 3 days. We will show the galaxy that humanity's mercy is just another word for weakness." The commanders cheered. Plans were made. Ships were prepared. And in a small apartment on the other side of the station, Crane sat alone, staring at the stars, knowing exactly what was about to happen. He had tried. He had warned them. Now, all he could do was wait for the inevitable reports of captured Crinathian forces and the new prisoners who would soon arrive at the rehabilitation centers. He closed his eyes and whispered a human phrase he had learned long ago, one that had haunted him for decades. "We will wait as long as it takes." The words felt like a life sentence. Because for the humans, they were. The Crinathian fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the new Harrisburg system with perfect precision. 18 warships, their weapons charged and shields at maximum strength, hung in the darkness of space like predators preparing to strike. On the command deck of the flagship Relentless Fury, Commander Vex's Thor watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. "Report," he ordered, settling into his command chair. Lieutenant Morksan, the sensor officer, studied her instruments with her 4 eyes narrowed in concentration. "Initial scans confirm intelligence reports. Commander, the colony has minimal orbital defenses. 2 monitoring satellites, 1 small cargo station, no military vessels in the immediate area. Population centers show approximately 2 million inhabitants spread across 4 major settlements. And their response to our arrival? They are broadcasting standard hailing frequencies. No panic signals. No distress calls to neighboring systems." Morkson looked up, confusion evident in her expression. "They seem remarkably calm, sir." Vex Thor felt the first whisper of unease, but he pushed it aside. Humans were pacifists. Everyone knew this. Their calm was simply the resignation of sheep before wolves. "Deploy the assault wings. I want full control of orbital space within the hour. Communications. Jam all outgoing transmissions. I do not want them calling for help." The fleet spread out in a practiced maneuver that had been perfected over centuries of warfare. Fighter craft launched from carrier bays, filling the space between the larger vessels like schools of metallic fish. Within 30 minutes, the Crinathians had complete control of the high ground. The human satellites were disabled with precise weapons fire. The cargo stations surrendered without resistance. "Too easy," a voice whispered in Vex Thor's mind. "Begin the ground assault," he commanded. "Target the largest settlement first. I want the agricultural processing centers intact. Kill only if necessary. We are here for resources and leverage, not genocide." Transport ships descended through the atmosphere of New Harrisburg, their hulls glowing as they pushed through the friction of entry. The planet below was beautiful in a way that made some of the younger soldiers pause at their viewports. Rolling fields of golden crops stretched to the horizon. Rivers sparkled in the sunlight. Cities of white buildings nestled among green parks and gardens. It looked peaceful, innocent, defenseless. The transports landed on the outskirts of the capital city, a place the humans called Hope's Landing. The assault ramps dropped, and Crinathian soldiers rushed out, weapons ready, expecting resistance. What they found instead was orderly chaos. Humans were evacuating, but not in panic. They moved in organized groups, adults helping children, elderly being assisted by younger people. They had vehicles, and they were loading belongings with practiced efficiency. Captain Threnix, leading the ground forces, activated his communicator. "Commander, the humans are evacuating. Should we stop them?" Vex Thor considered this from orbit. "Let them go. Fewer civilians means fewer complications. Secure the infrastructure and wait for their government to contact us with surrender terms." The Crinathian forces spread through the city, meeting almost no resistance. A few human security officers fired some shots, but they retreated quickly when pressed. Buildings were occupied, strategic locations secured. By nightfall, on the first day, the Crinathians controlled Hope's Landing and had begun operations at 3 other major settlements. Captain Threnix established his command post in what had been the colonial governor's office, a spacious room with wide windows overlooking the city. He sat at the governor's desk and activated the computer terminal, expecting to find useful intelligence. The system opened without any security measures. Files were readily accessible. Communications logs were complete and unencrypted. That should have been the second warning sign. The first real problem started on the second day. Soldiers began reporting unusual symptoms: headaches, dizziness. Nothing serious, but widespread enough to be concerning. The medical officer, Dr. Vreneth, examined dozens of cases and found nothing obviously wrong. It might be something in the air, she suggested. This is an agricultural world. Perhaps pollen or some local allergen affecting our biology. The symptoms worsened on the third day. More soldiers reported feeling disoriented. Some experienced vivid dreams. A few claimed to see things that were not there. Dr. Vrenoth became increasingly worried. She ran tests on the water supply, the air, the food that the soldiers had brought with them. Everything came back clean. It was a junior technician who discovered the truth. While scanning the walls of a building with equipment designed to detect surveillance devices, he picked up strange readings. Embedded in the structures throughout the city were devices emitting low-frequency pulses. Alone, each device was harmless. Together, they created a field that interfered with Crinathian neural activity. They are everywhere, the technician reported to Captain Threnix. In the walls, the floors, the streets. The whole city is rigged. Threnix immediately contacted the flagship. Commander, we have a situation. The humans booby-trapped their cities with some kind of neural dampening technology. Vex Thor felt his earlier unease return, stronger this time. How bad is it? Our soldiers are experiencing disorientation and hallucinations. It is not lethal, but it is definitely affecting combat readiness. I recommend we evacuate to the ships until we can develop countermeasures. Denied, Vex Thor said firmly. That is exactly what they want. We hold our positions. Distribute medication to counteract the symptoms. The humans will negotiate once they realize we cannot be easily dislodged. But the problems continued. On the fourth day, supply officers discovered that many of the food stores left behind by the evacuating humans were contaminated. Not poisoned, the medical scans showed, but laced with microscopic tracking devices. Every crate, every package, every container that Crinathian forces had moved or opened now had a signal that could be detected from orbit. They tagged us, Lieutenant Morkson reported from the flagship. I am picking up thousands of tracking signatures. I can map the exact position of every unit we have on the ground. Vex Thor stood at his command station, his tail lashing in agitation. Find the transmission source. Jam the signals. Sir, the signals are not being transmitted. They are passive markers. Something has to actively scan for them. But if something was scanning... She paused, her eyes widening. Sir, I am detecting multiple FTL signatures at the edge of the system. The tactical display lit up with red markers. Ships were emerging from faster-than-light travel in a perfect sphere around New Harrisburg. Their positions calculated with mathematical precision. Not just a few ships. Dozens. Hundreds. Within 10 minutes, the Crinathian fleet found itself surrounded by a human armada that outnumbered them 20 to 1. Battle stations, Vex Thor ordered, his voice tight. Prepare for combat. Admiral Kreenax, commanding the port battle group, opened a channel. Commander, we are badly outnumbered. Recommend we retreat while we still can. Agreed. All ships, prepare to jump. Set course for the rally point. The fleet's faster-than-light drives began their activation sequences, the massive energy buildup creating visible distortions in space around each ship. But before a single vessel could jump, new contacts appeared on the sensors. Smaller ships, moving with incredible speed, positioned themselves at precise intervals around the Crinathian fleet. Each one deployed a device that began emitting a field of energy. FTL drives are not responding, the engineering officer reported. Some kind of interdiction field. We are trapped. Number 4. On the ground, Captain Threnix watched as shapes appeared in the sky. Human ships, smaller than the Crinathian transports, but far more numerous, descended through the atmosphere. They did not fire weapons. They did not broadcast threats. They simply took up positions surrounding every Crinathian installation. All units, prepare to repel invasion, Threnix ordered. His soldiers, still affected by the neural dampeners but functional enough to fight, took defensive positions. Weapons were aimed at the landing human craft. Fingers rested on triggers. The human ships landed, and their hatches opened. What emerged made several Crinathian soldiers take involuntary steps backward. The humans wore armor. Yes, but it was strange armor, white and silver, marked with symbols that looked medical rather than military. They carried weapons, but again, the weapons looked wrong. Too bulky, with wide barrels and strange attachments. Hold fire until they are in range, Threnix commanded. The humans advanced in organized formations. And as they moved, they deployed devices that began filling the air with a thin mist. The first Crinathian to breathe, it fell unconscious within seconds. Then, another. Then dozens more. The gas spread quickly, carried by a light breeze that seemed almost providential. Gas masks, Threnix shouted, but many soldiers had already succumbed. Those who managed to don protective equipment found that the humans had more tricks, sonic weapons that made the inner ear feel like it was tearing apart, light pulses that induced temporary blindness, electromagnetic bursts that overloaded neural systems and caused involuntary muscle spasms. Not one weapon killed. Every single tool in the human arsenal was designed to incapacitate without causing permanent harm. Threnix managed to coordinate a defense for almost an hour before the humans deployed their final surprise. Drones, thousands of them, each carrying dart guns loaded with powerful sedatives specifically formulated for Crinathian biology. How the humans had obtained detailed biological data on his species was a question that would haunt Threnix later. For now, he could only watch as his soldiers fell one by one, peacefully sliding into unconsciousness. A dart struck his neck. He felt the cold spread of the drug through his bloodstream. His legs wobbled. His weapon fell from his grasp. As he collapsed to his knees, he saw a human approaching, a medic by the symbols on the armor. The last thing he heard before darkness took him was the human speaking in perfect Crinathian. "You are safe now. We will take care of you." In orbit, the battle was even more one-sided. The human fleet did not destroy the Crinathian ships. Instead, they disabled them with surgical precision. Weapons systems were targeted and neutralized. Shield generators were overloaded. Life support remained untouched. Engines were crippled just enough to prevent escape, but not enough to cause catastrophic failures. Boarding parties followed, and they brought the same non-lethal arsenal that the ground forces had used. Gas flooded the corridors of Crinathian warships. Sonic weapons stunned entire crews. Within 6 hours of the human fleet's arrival, every single Crinathian vessel was dead in space, its crew unconscious or surrendered. Vex Thor watched it all happen from his command chair, his mind racing through tactical options and finding none. His fleet was trapped. His soldiers were defeated, and not one human had died in the process. When the boarding party reached the bridge of relentless fury, he did not even try to fight. He stood, placed his weapons on the deck, and raised his hands in the traditional Crinathian gesture of surrender. A human woman entered the bridge, removing her helmet to reveal dark hair and calm brown eyes. She looked at Vex Thor with an expression that was not triumphant or angry. It was something worse. It was compassionate. "Commander Vex Thor," she said in flawless Crinathian. "My name is Captain Maria Chen. On behalf of the United Human Systems, I accept your surrender. You and your crew will be treated in accordance with all applicable laws and conventions. Medical teams are standing by to attend to any injuries. You will be fed, housed, and cared for. Do you understand? Vex Thor stared at her, Crane's warning echoing in his mind. You are going to rehabilitate us, he said, and the word tasted like poison. Captain Chen's expression softened with what looked like genuine sympathy. We are going to help you. We are going to show you a better way, and we are going to take as long as necessary to do it properly. She gestured, and human medics came forward with scanners and medical equipment. Vex Thor felt a sedative dart strike his shoulder. As the world began to fade, he realized the true horror of his situation. Crane had been right about everything. The humans were not weak. They were something far more terrifying. They were patient, prepared, and absolutely certain of their moral superiority. The last coherent thought Vex Thor had before unconsciousness claimed him was a simple one that would define the rest of his existence. He had not been defeated in battle. He had walked into a trap that had been set long before his fleet ever arrived. The humans had known they were coming. They had prepared. They had made their colony look vulnerable, while secretly turning it into the perfect ambush. And now, like Crane before him, like the hundreds of thousands of others in human rehabilitation facilities across known space, Vex Thor would learn what it truly meant to be the victim of human compassion. The galaxy had its apex predators. Every species knew this. But the humans had taught them all a new lesson. The most dangerous predator is not the one that kills you. It is the one that captures you and never, ever lets you go. Vex Thor woke to soft lighting and the smell of something pleasant he could not immediately identify. His first instinct was to reach for a weapon. But his hands found only soft fabric. He sat up quickly, his combat training overriding the lingering effects of sedation. Then he stopped, staring in confusion at his surroundings. He was in a room, not a cell. The walls were painted a calming shade of blue. A window showed a view of gardens and walking paths. The bed he was lying on was more comfortable than his own quarters on the flagship had been. There was a desk with a computer terminal, a small bathroom visible through an open door, and shelves stocked with books and what looked like entertainment media. The door to the room opened and a human entered. She was older, with gray hair and kind eyes. She wore simple clothes in soft colors, not a uniform. She smiled when she saw Vex Thor was awake. Good morning, Commander. My name is Dr. Sarah Mitchell. How are you feeling? Vex's Thor's hand went to his neck, where he remembered the sedative dart striking. There was a small bandage there, but no pain. Where am I? Where are my crew? You are at Rehabilitation Center 7, Dr. Mitchell said, sitting in a chair near the desk. She moved slowly, keeping her body language open and non-threatening. Your crew is here as well, all safe and healthy. You have been asleep for about 18 hours, while we made sure there were no adverse reactions to the sedatives we used. I apologize for the necessity of that. We try to avoid chemical intervention when possible, but the circumstances required it. A prison, Vex Thor said, his voice flat. You can call it a rehabilitation center, but it is still a prison. Dr. Mitchell considered this thoughtfully. I suppose, from your perspective, it might feel that way. But I would encourage you to think of it differently. This is a place of healing and growth. You came to our world with the intention of violence. We stopped you, yes, but we did not hurt you. Now, we have an opportunity to help you understand why violence is not the answer. Vex Thor stood, moving to the window. The view showed him that his room was several floors up in a large complex of buildings. He could see other structures, all designed with the same aesthetic of open spaces and natural light. Between the buildings, beings of various species walked on paths. Some were clearly guards, humans in light armor. But others were prisoners like himself, moving freely, some in conversation, some sitting on benches reading. You cannot keep us here, he said. The Galactic Council will demand our release. The Council has already been notified of your status. Dr. Mitchell replied. All proper procedures have been followed. You and your crew are classified as military prisoners who engaged in an act of aggression against a peaceful colony. Under the Galactic Convention, we are permitted to detain you until such time as we determine you no longer pose a threat. And when will that be? Dr. Mitchell's smile was gentle but firm. That depends entirely on you, Commander. Some individuals complete the rehabilitation process in a few years. Others take longer. We do not have a set timeline. Every person is different. The door opened again, and 2 more humans entered, one carrying a tray of food. The smell that Vex Thor had noticed earlier grew stronger. It was food, prepared in a style similar to traditional Crinathian cuisine. The humans set the tray on the desk and stepped back. We have a complete nutritional profile for your species, Doctor, Mitchell explained. This meal is designed to meet all your dietary needs and to taste familiar. We want you to be comfortable here. Vex Thor looked at the food but did not move toward it. Why are you doing this? Why not just execute us? Or hold us in actual cells and negotiate our release? Because we do not believe in execution, Dr. Mitchell said simply. And we do not believe that simply holding people accomplishes anything positive. Humans learned a very hard lesson over many centuries, Commander. We had prisons once that were meant only to punish. They created more violence, not less. We had execution as a practice. It solved nothing. Eventually, we realized that the only way to truly create peace was to address the root causes of violence. She stood and walked to the bookshelf, pulling out a volume. This is a history of human criminal justice systems. I would like you to read it when you have time. It explains how we arrived at our current philosophy. But the simple version is this. We believe that any sentient being is capable of change. We believe that given the right environment, the right education, and the right support, even those who have committed terrible acts can become better. And if we refuse to change, Vex Thor asked, then we continue to try. For as long as it takes. Dr. Mitchell placed the book on the desk near the food. I know this is difficult to accept, Commander. I know you view us as your enemies. But I want you to understand something very important. We do not hate you. We do not wish you harm. We genuinely want to help you. She moved to the door. Eat something. Rest. Tomorrow we will begin your orientation. You will meet with a counselor, take some assessments, and start to learn about the program here. If you have questions or needs, there is a call button by your bed. Someone is always available. After she left, Vexy Thor stood motionless for several minutes. Then, despite himself, he approached the food. He had not eaten in over a day, and his body demanded sustenance. He took a small bite, expecting it to be bland or wrong. Instead, it tasted almost exactly like a dish his mother used to make. The familiarity of it made his chest tighten with an emotion he did not want to name. He ate mechanically, his mind working through his situation. He was a prisoner, no matter what pleasant words the humans used. But this was unlike any imprisonment he had heard of. The room was comfortable. The food was good. There were no bars, no chains, no guards standing watch. Yet he knew with certainty that he could not leave. The computer terminal caught his attention. He activated it, expecting to find it locked or monitored. Instead, it opened to a menu of options. There was access to a library of information, entertainment, media, communication systems. He tried to send a message to the Crinathian Empire and found that external communications were restricted. But he could send messages within the facility. He could see a list of other prisoners, including his own crew members. He sent a message to Captain Threnix. Are you well? What is your status? The reply came within minutes. Commander, I am unharmed. I am in a room similar to what you described in your previous message. The humans have been very accommodating. Too accommodating. This is disturbing. Too accommodating. Vex Thor sent messages to several other officers and received similar replies. All were safe. All were confused. All were uncomfortable with the treatment they were receiving. The next morning began with a soft chime from the computer terminal. A message appeared, informing him that his first counseling session was scheduled in 1 hour. He would be escorted by a staff member. Also 9. With a 5 left as monos, instructions for using the shower and finding appropriate clothing were provided. The clothing was another surprise. Not a prison uniform, but simple, comfortable garments in neutral colors. They fit well, suggesting the humans had detailed physical measurements of every prisoner. Vex Thor dressed slowly, his military training making him analyze every detail. The clothes had no pockets, nothing that could conceal a weapon. The fabric was soft but durable. Everything was designed for comfort and functionality. The escort arrived precisely on time. She was a young human woman with a friendly smile. "Good morning, Commander Vex Thor. I am Jennifer, one of the orientation specialists. I will be showing you around the facility today and taking you to your appointments. If you will follow me." She led him through corridors that were wide and well lit. They passed other prisoners, some moving with escorts like himself, others apparently moving freely. He saw members of species he recognized, and some he did not. All looked healthy, if somewhat subdued. "How many prisoners are here?" he asked. "At Rehabilitation Center 7, we currently house approximately 53,000 individuals from 22 different species," Jennifer replied cheerfully. "We are one of the larger facilities. The humans operate 12 major centers across our territories, plus numerous smaller, specialized facilities." The number staggered him. 53,000 in just this one location. He did the mathematics in his head. If the humans had 12 major facilities of similar size, plus smaller ones, they could be holding 500,000 prisoners or more. Jennifer took him to an office where a human male waited. He was middle-aged, with graying hair and a calm demeanor. He stood and offered a hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Commander Vex Thor, I am Dr. James Rivera. I will be your primary counselor during your time here. Please, sit." The office was designed like the room Vex Thor had woken in. Comfortable, calming colors, plants growing in pots, windows showing natural light. Dr. Rivera sat across from him in a chair that was the same height and style as Vex Thor's own. No power dynamics in the furniture arrangement. "I want to start by acknowledging that this situation is difficult for you," Dr. Rivera began. "You are a military commander. You are accustomed to being in control. Now you find yourself in a place you did not choose, subject to rules you did not agree to. That is very challenging, and your feelings about it are valid." Vexes Thor said nothing, waiting to see where this would lead. "My role here is not to punish you or judge you," Dr. Rivera continued. "My role is to help you explore why you made the choices you made, and to help you develop new ways of thinking about conflict and violence. Does that make sense? You want to change how I think?" Vex Thor said flatly. "I want to help you examine your beliefs and consider alternatives," Dr. Rivera corrected gently. "The Krynathian culture values strength and conquest. You were raised with certain ideas about honor and power. Those ideas led you to attack a peaceful colony. I would like to explore with you whether there might be other ways to achieve your goals that do not involve violence. And if I do not want to explore these things," Dr. Rivera smiled slightly, "then we will spend our sessions in silence until you do." "I have infinite patience, Commander. That is something you will learn about humans. We do not give up. Not on anyone. Not ever." The session lasted an hour. Dr. Rivera asked questions about Vex Thor's childhood, his military career, his beliefs about honor and duty. Vex Thor answered some questions and refused others. The counselor never pushed, never seemed frustrated. He simply made notes and moved to different topics. After the counseling session, Jennifer took Vex Thor to an orientation classroom. There he found 24 other newly arrived prisoners from his fleet. They sat in comfortable chairs, arranged in a semicircle. A human instructor stood at the front. "Welcome," she said. "Over the next few days, you will learn about the structure and expectations of this facility. You will understand your rights and responsibilities as residents. You will begin educational programs designed to help you develop new skills and perspectives. I know this is strange for all of you. I know you did not choose to be here, but I promise you that we will treat you with dignity and respect throughout this process." She began to explain the daily routine. Meals were provided at set times, with options for different dietary needs. Educational sessions were mandatory. Counseling appointments were scheduled regularly. Recreation time was provided. There were libraries, exercise facilities, common areas for socialization. One of the Krynathian officers raised a hand. "When will we be released?" The instructor's expression became sympathetic. "That depends on your individual progress through the rehabilitation program. We do not have set sentences here. Each person advances at their own pace. Some complete the program in a few years. For others, it takes longer." "How much longer?" the officer pressed. "We have residents who have been here for several decades," the instructor admitted. "But they receive excellent care throughout their stay. And many have reported that the experience changed their lives for the better. Though. The room erupted in protests and angry questions. The instructor waited patiently for the noise to die down, then continued as if nothing had happened. Over the following days, Vex's Thor began to understand the true scope of what the humans had created. This was not a prison in any traditional sense. It was an enormous machine designed for one purpose: to take beings who committed acts of violence and reshape them into beings who would never commit violence again. Every aspect of the facility served this goal. The comfortable rooms made prisoners feel cared for rather than punished. The good food and medical care kept them healthy. The counseling sessions forced them to examine their beliefs. The educational programs exposed them to human philosophy and ethics. The social activities encouraged them to form connections with prisoners from other species, breaking down cultural barriers. And everywhere, always, the humans waited with endless patience and unwavering certainty that they were doing the right thing. On his 5th day, Vex Thor met a Vrexian who had been at the facility for 32 years. The old creature looked healthy, well-fed, but there was something in his eyes that disturbed Vex Thor deeply. It was acceptance. The Vrexian spoke about the humans with respect, even affection. He taught meditation classes to new prisoners. He had forgotten how to hate. "Does it get easier?" Vex Thor asked him. The Vrexian smiled sadly. "Eventually, you stop fighting. Eventually, you listen to what they are saying. And eventually, you realize they might be right. That is when it becomes easier. Insi, Rexian, or harder, depending on how you look at it." Vex Thor returned to his room that night and stood at the window for a long time, staring out at the peaceful gardens below. He thought about Crane's warning. He thought about the comfortable bed behind him and the good food he would eat tomorrow. He thought about Dr. Rivera's patient questions and the instructor's gentle explanations. And for the first time since his capture, Vex Thor felt something close to fear. Not fear of death or pain. Fear of something far worse. Fear that the humans might actually succeed. 6 months passed like water flowing over stone, slowly wearing away at the hard edges of resistance. Vex Thor marked each day on a calendar the humans had provided. Though he sometimes wondered why he bothered, the days blurred together in a routine that was simultaneously monotonous and exhausting. Every morning began the same way. Breakfast in the communal dining hall, where prisoners from dozens of species gathered to eat food prepared specifically for their biological needs. Then educational sessions, where human instructors taught subjects ranging from galactic history to conflict resolution techniques. Afternoon. Counseling with Dr. Rivera, who never seemed to run out of gentle but probing questions. Evening recreation time, followed by dinner, then personal time, before lights dimmed for sleep. The routine was comfortable. That was what made it dangerous. Vex Thor had tried to resist in the early weeks. He refused to speak during counseling sessions. He skipped educational classes. He avoided interaction with other prisoners. The humans responded with patience. Dr. Rivera sat with him in silence, never showing frustration. Instructors marked him as absent, but sent him the lesson materials anyway. Staff members checked on him regularly, asking if he needed anything. If there was a problem they could address. There were no punishments, no threats, no consequences beyond the knowledge that his lack of participation would extend his stay indefinitely. And that, Vex Thor was beginning to realize, was the most sophisticated form of punishment ever devised. The humans had made cooperation the only logical path forward, while still allowing prisoners the illusion of choice. He started attending the classes, telling himself it was just to gather intelligence. The content surprised him. The humans did not simply indoctrinate prisoners with propaganda. They taught critical thinking, encouraged questions, presented multiple perspectives on complex issues. One class focused on the history of warfare across different species. The instructor, a human named Professor Chen, showed examples of conflicts that could have been avoided through better communication or resolved through means other than violence. The question I want you to consider, Professor Chen said during one session, is not whether violence is ever justified. That is a philosophical debate we could have forever. The question is whether it is necessary. Whether the goals you sought to achieve through conquest could have been achieved through other means. End quote. A Kragnoth prisoner, a massive creature with 4 arms and armored hide, spoke up. My people have always taken what we needed. It is our way. We are strong. Others are weak. This is natural law. Professor Chen nodded thoughtfully. Natural law is an interesting concept. Humans once believed in something similar. We called it survival of the fittest. We used it to justify terrible things done to each other and to other species on our world. Then we learned that intelligence allows us to transcend natural law. We can choose to cooperate instead of compete. We can build systems where everyone has enough, eliminating the need to take from others. But someone must still be in charge, the Kragnoth argued. Someone must have power. True, Professor Chen agreed. But power can be given through consent rather than seized through force. It can be shared rather than hoarded. It can be used to lift others up rather than push them down. These are not new ideas. Many species throughout the galaxy have discovered them. Humans were actually quite late to this understanding. The conversation continued, and Vex Thor found himself listening despite his intention to remain detached. The professor presented data showing that cooperative societies were more stable and prosperous than conquest-based ones. She showed economic models demonstrating that trade was more efficient than plunder. She cited historical examples of empires that collapsed under the weight of their own aggression. During his counseling session that afternoon, Dr. Rivera asked about the class. What did you think of Professor Chen's lecture? Vex Thor had learned that simple refusal to engage only prolonged the sessions. She makes interesting arguments, but theory and practice are different things. The galaxy is dangerous. Weakness invites attack. Is kindness the same as weakness? Dr. Rivera asked. Often, yes. Then how do you explain what happened at New Harrisburg? The humans who defeated your fleet, who captured every one of your soldiers without losing a single person. Were they weak? Vex Thor had no good answer for that. He had thought about it many times. The tactical perfection of the human operation haunted him. They had predicted every move, prepared for every contingency. They had turned an apparent vulnerability into an unbeatable trap. That was not weakness. Strength takes many forms, Dr. Rivera continued. Physical power is one, but there is also strategic strength, moral strength, the strength to show mercy when you could show cruelty. Humans developed these strengths out of necessity. We were our own worst enemies for thousands of years. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. We learned that raw aggression leads to mutual destruction. 24. Teen. 2. So you chose to become pacifists? No, Dr. Rivera said firmly. We chose to become selective about when and how we use force. We still maintain militaries. We still defend ourselves. But we view violence as a last resort, not a first option. And when we do use force, we use it with the goal of stopping threats, not eliminating them. By imprisoning them forever, Vex Thor said bitterly. Dr. Rivera leaned back in his chair. Not forever. Until they are no longer threats. I know that seems like a subtle distinction to you, but it is important. We do not want to keep you here, Commander. We want to help you become someone who can return to the galaxy without posing a danger to others. And if that is not who I am, if I do not want to change, then we will continue to try to help you want to change. Because we believe you are capable of it. We believe all sentient beings have the capacity for growth and improvement. These conversations followed a pattern. Dr. Rivera would present an idea, Vex Thor would argue against it. The counselor would respond with questions rather than answers, forcing Vex Thor to examine his own reasoning. It was exhausting, and despite Vex Thor's best efforts to resist, effective. In the third month, Vex's Thor was moved to a different section of the facility, one housing longer-term residents. His new living unit was slightly larger, with a small kitchen area and a better view. He had 3 neighbors, all of whom had been at the facility for over a decade. One was a Selkari named Keshma, a former military intelligence officer who had been captured during a covert operation against a human research station 15 years ago. She was quiet, spent most of her time reading, and occasionally invited Vex Thor to share meals. During one such meal, Vex Thor asked the question that had been bothering him. Do you ever think about escaping? Keshma looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. Every day, for the first 5 years, I planned dozens of escape attempts. I studied the guard rotations, the security systems, the layout of the facility. I even managed to get outside the main building once. What happened? I made it approximately 300 meters before being caught. The humans have monitoring systems that track every prisoner at all times. Biometric sensors, motion detectors, surveillance that covers every centimeter of the grounds. They knew I was attempting escape before I even left my room. They let me try because they knew I would fail, and they wanted me to learn that escape was impossible. And then, they brought me back. No punishment, no anger, just disappointment. My counselor asked me why I wanted to leave. We spent months exploring that question. Eventually, I realized I did not actually know where I would go. My government had disavowed my mission. My family believed me dead. I had nowhere to return to. She paused, her expression distant. The humans became the only ones who cared whether I lived or died. Vex Thor felt a chill at those words. This was the other edge of the human strategy. They did not just imprison bodies. They eroded the connections that made escape meaningful. Time in the facility separated prisoners from their old lives. Years passed. Governments changed. Families moved on. The outside world became increasingly abstract, while the facility, with its routines and relationships, became real. In the 4th month, Vex's Thor witnessed something that disturbed him deeply. A new group of prisoners arrived. Soldiers from a species called the Vreen, who had attacked a human mining operation. They were angry, defiant, making threats and demands. The human staff treated them with the same patient kindness they showed everyone else. One of the Vreen prisoners was particularly aggressive. He lunged at a guard during processing, trying to take the human's weapon. The response was swift and non-lethal. Other guards subdued the Vreen with shocking efficiency, using holds and pressure points that neutralized the attack without causing injury. Within seconds, the prisoner was on the ground, restrained, but unharmed. What happened next was what bothered Vex Thor. The guards did not drag the Vreen to isolation. They did not punish him. Instead, they called medical staff to check for injuries. A counselor arrived to speak with the prisoner, explaining calmly that violence would not help his situation. They offered the Vreen a sedative to help him calm down, presented as a choice rather than a demand. The Vreen refused, continuing to shout and struggle. The humans simply waited. They sat with him, spoke softly, offered water and food. After 2 hours, exhaustion did what force could not. The Vreen's resistance faded. He accepted the water. He stopped shouting. And the humans praised this tiny concession like it was a major victory. "You did well," one counselor told the Vreen. "That first step of accepting help is always the hardest. Tomorrow will be easier." Vex's Thor watched from a distance and understood with sickening clarity what he was seeing. This was how it worked. The humans absorbed resistance like water absorbing a stone. They never pushed back directly. They simply surrounded the problem with patience and kindness until it eroded away. He thought about Crane's warning. The old Vrexian had tried to tell them, but words could not convey the reality of this place. You had to experience it to understand. The comfort that made you feel guilty for resisting. The kindness that made you question your hatred. The endless patience that made your anger seem childish and petty. In the 5th month, Dr. Rivera introduced a new element to their sessions. "I would like you to meet someone," he said one day. A human woman entered the office, younger than most of the staff Vex Thor had encountered. She had kind eyes and moved with a slight limp. "Commander Vex Thor, this is Rebecca Morrison. She was one of the colonists at New Harrisburg when your fleet attacked." Vex Thor's body tensed. This was some new psychological tactic. Dr. Rivera was going to force him to confront a victim of his actions. Rebecca sat down, showing no fear or anger. "I wanted to meet you," she said simply. "I wanted to understand why you attacked our home." Vex Thor said nothing. "I was in the evacuation," Rebecca continued. "I helped load children onto transport vehicles. I was scared, not knowing if your soldiers would let us go or if they would kill us. When one of your fighters buzzed our convoy, I thought that was the end. But nothing happened. You let us evacuate. That was tactical," Vex Thor said flatly. "Fewer civilians meant less resistance." "Maybe," Rebecca acknowledged. "But you still made that choice. You could have done things differently. That suggests you are not someone who wants to harm innocents. You are someone who made choices based on what you believed was right and necessary for your people." This was worse than anger would have been. She was humanizing him, making him see himself as someone who had reasons, rather than someone who was simply evil. "My daughter was 6 years old during the attack," Rebecca said. "She still has nightmares about the ships in the sky. But I do not hate you, Commander. I do not want revenge. I want to understand how we can prevent this from happening again." She visited 3 more times over the following weeks. Each time, she shared more about her life on New Harrisburg, about the community they had built, about the plans they had for the future before the attack disrupted everything. She never accused. She never blamed. She simply existed as a living reminder that Vex Thor's tactical decisions had real consequences for real people. By the 6th month, Vex Thor had stopped marking days on his calendar. He attended all his classes without resistance. He participated honestly in counseling sessions. He helped newer prisoners adjust to facility life. And late at night, alone in his comfortable room, he wondered if this meant the humans were winning or if he was simply going mad. One evening, he stood at his window and watched the sun set over the gardens. Keshma joined him, carrying 2 cups of tea. "How long until they let me go?" he asked her. She handed him a cup. When you stop thinking of it as them letting you go, and start thinking of it as you being ready to leave. That is when you know you have changed. That is what they are waiting for. And is that what happened to you? Keshma sipped her tea thoughtfully. I do not know anymore. I have been here so long that I cannot remember who I was before. The person I am now. This person they created. She does not want to leave. She has a purpose here. She helps others through what she went through. And some days, I think that is victory. Other days, I think it is the most complete defeat imaginable. She left him with those words. Vex Thor stood at the window long after the sun had set, holding his tea, thinking about time and change and the terrifying patience of human compassion. 5 years after his capture, Vex Thor sat in a recording studio within Rehabilitation Center 7. The room was small but comfortable, equipped with advanced communication technology. Administrator Sarah Chen sat across from him, her expression neutral but attentive. You understand what this message will mean, she said. It was not a question. Vex Thor looked at the recording equipment, then back at Chen. I understand. The Krynathian Empire will see it as proof of their worst fears. They will say the humans broke me, that I am no longer myself. Is that true? Chen asked gently. Are you no longer yourself? The question struck deeper than Vex Thor expected. He thought about the commander who had arrived 5 years ago, confident in his superiority, certain that human kindness was weakness. That person seemed like a stranger now. I do not know how to answer that. I remember being him, but I cannot think the way he thought anymore. Does that make me broken? Or does it make me different? That is something only you can determine, Chen said. But you have been cleared for this communication by your counseling team. Dr. Rivera believes you are ready to share your experience honestly. Whether you choose to do so is entirely your decision. Vex Thor activated the recording system. A small light indicated it was capturing both audio and video. He sat up straighter. Muscle memory, from countless military briefings taking over. Then he began to speak in his native language. I am Commander Vex Thor of the Krynathian Imperial Fleet. If you are watching this, you are likely planning an attack on human territories or considering such action. I am sending this message to warn you. Do not make the same mistake I made. He paused, gathering his thoughts. 5 years ago, I led a fleet against the human colony of New Harrisburg. I believed humans were weak because they valued peace over conquest, mercy over vengeance. I was wrong. Not because humans are secretly warlike, but because I did not understand what their philosophy truly meant. Humans do not fight wars the way we do. They do not seek to destroy their enemies. They seek to capture and keep them. Every soldier in my fleet was taken alive. Every crew member of every ship was subdued without being killed. And then, the real war began. The one I had no idea I was entering. Vex Thor leaned forward. They call this place a rehabilitation center. We are fed better than most Krynathian military personnel. We have medical care that extends our lives beyond natural limits. We have comfortable rooms, entertainment, education. We are treated with unfailing kindness and patience. And we cannot leave. There is no set sentence here. No time you can count down to freedom. You remain until the humans decide you have been rehabilitated, which means until you become someone who thinks like they do. Some prisoners have been here for decades. Some will likely die here, still waiting for release that depends entirely on how much they have changed. He stood and moved to the window, keeping in frame of the camera. The Galactic Council cannot help you. The humans follow all the proper legal procedures. They document everything. They can prove that prisoners receive excellent care, regular evaluations, opportunities for progress. The fact that their standards for release are nearly impossible to meet is conveniently ignored. Escape is impossible. The security here is absolute. Biometric tracking, surveillance systems, Guard forces that respond instantly to any threat. Prisoners have tried. All have failed. The facility is designed by beings who spent thousands of years learning how to contain their own criminals. They are very, very good at it. Vex Thor returned to his chair. But the worst part is not the security or the indefinite detention. The worst part is that their method works. After months of counseling, education, and exposure to human philosophy, you begin to question your beliefs. After years, you start to see their point of view. And eventually, if they are successful, you become someone who cannot imagine raising a weapon against another sentient being. I have seen warriors reduced to teaching art classes. I have seen intelligence officers who now counsel new prisoners on accepting their situation. I have seen proud soldiers who have forgotten their home languages because they have been here so long. The humans do not break you with pain. They reshape you with patience. He looked directly into the camera. If you attack humans, you will not die gloriously in battle. You will not be ransomed back to your people. You will not escape. You will be captured, cared for, and kept in comfortable confinement for years or decades, while they slowly, gently, irreversibly change you into someone else. Someone who sees violence the way they see it, as a failure rather than a solution. This is not propaganda. I am not being forced to say these things. This is the truth. The humans have weaponized compassion. They have turned rehabilitation into the most effective deterrent in the galaxy. Because death, we can face. Death is final, clean, understandable. But this endless mercy that refuses to give up on you no matter how much you wish it would, this is something far more terrifying. Vex Thor's voice dropped. I am sending this message because I was warned before my attack. A Vrexian, named Quirain, tried to tell me what would happen. I did not listen. I thought he was a coward, that the humans had broken him. Now I understand he was trying to save us from a fate worse than defeat. So this is my warning to the Crinathian Empire, and to any species considering aggression against humanity. You cannot win against humans, because they refuse to play by anyone else's rules. They will not kill you. They will not torture you. They will heal your wounds, feed you, educate you, and keep you safe in comfortable imprisonment until you are no longer the person who attacked them. And they will wait as long as it takes. He ended the recording and sat in silence. Chen remained quiet, allowing him time to process what he had done. After several minutes, Vex Thor spoke again. Will it make any difference? Some will listen, Chen said. Some will not. But the message needed to be sent. Species need to understand the consequences of attacking humanity. And when the Crinathian Empire sees this, what will they do? Chen considered the question. Our intelligence suggests they have already begun to reconsider their aggressive expansion policies. Your fleet was not the first to attack us, but attacks have decreased significantly over the past few years. Word is spreading among warrior cultures that humans are not the easy targets they appear to be. She stood, preparing to leave. Your counseling team believes you have made excellent progress, Commander. You have been approved for limited work release within the facility. If you choose, you can begin teaching introductory courses to new arrivals, helping them adjust to life here. Vex Thor understood the significance of this. They were offering him a role, a purpose, integration into the system that held him. It was another step in the process, another way to make the facility feel like home rather than prison. I will consider it, he said. 3 months later, Vex Thor stood before a classroom of newly arrived Crinathian prisoners. His own people, captured in a second failed attack on human territories. They looked at him with confusion and disgust. They saw a traitor, a broken tool of the humans. I know what you are thinking, Vex Thor began. You see me wearing human-provided clothing, speaking calmly in a human facility, and you believe I have betrayed our people. You are wrong. I am trying to help you survive what comes next. He spent the next hour explaining the reality of rehabilitation center life. He told them about the counseling sessions, the educational programs, The comfortable imprisonment that could last decades. He saw the same disbelief he had felt 5 years ago. History was repeating itself. After the class, a young officer approached him. "You have given up," the officer said with contempt. "You let them break you." Vex Thor met the officer's angry gaze. "Perhaps, or perhaps I learned something that our culture never taught us. That strength can exist without violence. That mercy is not the same as weakness. That there are other ways to exist in this galaxy, besides conquest. Those are human thoughts, not Crinathian ones." "Yes," Vex Thor agreed. "They are. And that should tell you everything you need to know about how effective the human system is. 5 years ago, I would have said the same things you are saying now. Give it time. We will have this conversation again, and your words will be different." The officer walked away, disgusted. Vex Thor watched him go and felt a complicated mix of emotions. Sadness for what that young officer would experience. Recognition of his own journey reflected in another's resistance. And underneath it all, a quiet acceptance that he would likely still be here when that officer eventually changed his mind. Meanwhile, the message Vex Thor had recorded spread through secure channels to the Galactic Council and beyond. Military strategists watched it with growing concern. Political leaders studied it carefully. Species planning aggression against human territories hesitated, weighing the costs of comfortable, indefinite imprisonment against potential gains. On the Crinathian homeworld, the High Command gathered to watch the transmission. They saw their decorated commander, now calm and articulate, warning them away from further confrontation with humanity. Debate raged for weeks. Some called for Vex Thor to be declared dead, his message the ravings of a broken mind. Others argued for immediate negotiations to secure his release. A delegation was sent to Rehabilitation Center 7. Administrator Chen received them personally, showing them the facilities, introducing them to some of the long-term residents. The Crinathian diplomats saw their people healthy, educated, well cared for. They also saw the subtle signs of fundamental change, the way prisoners spoke about peace and understanding, rather than honor and conquest. "Release them," the lead diplomat demanded. "You have held them long enough." Chen's response was gentle but firm. "They will be released when our evaluation teams determine they no longer pose a threat to galactic peace. We have detailed criteria, all documented and in accordance with interstellar law. Several residents are currently approaching release eligibility. Commander Vex Thor may qualify within the next year, if his progress continues." "A year?" the diplomat said. "He has been here for 5 years already." "Yes. And he has made remarkable progress. But rehabilitation is not measured in time served. It is measured in genuine change." The delegation left without their prisoners, but with a new understanding of human resolve. A report was filed with the High Command. Recommendations were made. And slowly, carefully, Crinathian expansion plans were modified to avoid human territories. Other species noticed. The warrior culture of the Vreen, who had lost hundreds of soldiers to human rehabilitation facilities, signed a non-aggression pact. The Kragnoth Empire, known for their arena combat traditions, opened diplomatic channels instead of launching the raids they had been planning. Attacks on human colonies decreased by 70% within 2 years of Vex Thor's message. The humans, for their part, continued their rehabilitation programs without change. New facilities were built to handle the prisoners they still occasionally received. Standards remained high. Patience remained infinite. 7 years after his capture, Vex Thor received notification that he was being approved for supervised release. He could leave the facility under certain conditions. Regular check-ins with human authorities, restrictions on travel to military zones, ongoing counseling sessions. He would be free, after a fashion. Dr. Rivera delivered the news personally. Vex Thor thought about it honestly. "Uncertain. I have spent so long here that I am not sure where I belong anymore." The Crinathian Empire will see me as corrupted. Other species will see me as a victim of human manipulation. But the truth is more complicated than either of those views. What is the truth? Rivera asked. The truth is that the humans were right about some things and wrong about others. Violence is not always the answer, but neither is indefinite detention of those who have not yet learned that lesson. The humans created a system so effective at preventing violence that they cannot see it, might also prevent genuine freedom. He paused. But I also learned that change is possible, that beings are not locked into the patterns of their cultures, that there are ways to exist besides the ones we are taught. So who am I now? I am someone who has been changed by this place, for better and worse. And I will carry that with me, wherever I go. Rivera smiled. That is, perhaps the most honest self-assessment I have heard in 20 years of doing this work. You are ready, Commander, not because you agree with everything humans believe, but because you can think critically about it while still choosing peace. Vex Thor left Rehabilitation Center 7 on a bright morning, walking through gates that had held him for 7 years. Keshma was there to see him off, as were several other long-term residents he had befriended. They understood what he was feeling, the strange mix of liberation and loss, as he boarded a transport that would take him to a neutral space station where he could begin rebuilding a life. Vex Thor looked back at the facility one last time. It looked peaceful, almost welcoming from the outside. Gardens and walking paths, buildings with large windows that let in natural light. It looked like a place of healing, and it was, in its way. The humans had meant well. They genuinely believed they were helping, saving their prisoners from lives of violence. The fact that their help came with invisible chains did not make it less sincere, just more complex. The transport lifted off. Vex Thor watched the rehabilitation center shrink into the distance. Somewhere in that facility, new prisoners were arriving. They were angry, resistant, certain they would never change. They would be greeted with patience and kindness. They would be cared for, and slowly, gently, irreversibly, they would become different, because the humans never gave up. They never stopped trying. They waited as long as it took. And in the end, that patience, that absolute certainty in their moral rightness, that refusal to accept that any being was beyond redemption, that was what made them the most terrifying species in the galaxy. Not because they conquered through force, but because they conquered through compassion. The message was clear, spreading through military channels and intelligence networks across known space. Do not attack the humans. Escape is impossible. They will not release you until you are no longer yourself. And they will wait forever, if necessary. The galaxy learned. Not all at once, not all species, not completely, but slowly, the lesson spread. Humanity became known not for their military might, but for their rehabilitation centers, not for the enemies they destroyed, but for the enemies they kept. And in those centers, in facilities scattered across human territories, hundreds of thousands of prisoners lived comfortable lives, attended their counseling sessions, progressed through their educational programs, and waited for the day when they would be judged, sufficiently changed, to return to the galaxy. Some would wait years, some would wait decades. Some would die, never meeting the human standards for release, but they would all be cared for. They would all be treated with dignity. They would all receive endless patience and unwavering kindness, because humans did not give up on anyone. Not ever. That was the promise. That was the threat. That was the reality of attacking humanity, and the galaxy, finally, was learning to fear not the predators who hunted them, but the compassionate ones who would catch them and never, ever let them go.